Good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for having me. So my name is Paul. I'm the founder and CEO of a Scottish startup called Trickle. Speaking today from Edinburgh, adding a little bit of a Scottish accent to the beautiful diversity we've shown already this morning. So we deliver an employee-led workplace improvement platform that's used by various NHS trusts in Scotland and England, and we're a partner with CGI. Now, today, I'm going to tell you a really quick story about how a chance encounter with a criminology blog on broken windows way back in 2008 triggered a journey that led us to help organisations become more inclusive, more transparent, and much more agile in the way that they deliver workplace improvement, and especially in the way that they engage their employees in real time. So over the next 15 minutes, I'm going to explain, first of all, what the broken windows theory is, very quickly. And then secondly, how I used that as a metaphor to deliver continuous workplace improvement in a way that engaged our employees at every step and helped us become way more agile and adaptable. And then lastly, we're going to look at how this led us to build a digital platform which various NHS trusts use to make sure that they engage on what matters most to their people. And what we'll do is we'll finish up looking at a couple of examples from NHS Scotland on how they're delivering employee-led improvement and innovation using the inclusive and agile method that we're going to look at in this session. So, broken windows is a criminology theory that was introduced in the 80s, and it transformed policing in major cities in the US and beyond. Now, I came across it back in 2008 as a CEO of a fast-growing tech business, and we had loads of growing pains. So it's based on a study of derelict buildings within communities, and what they found is that if you put signs up saying that the building is patrolled and kept secure, it will generally be kept in a good state. But if you deliberately break just one window and then you remove the security for a couple of days, well, when you come back, the building is typically well on the way to ruin. So this can be summarised in 4 points. The first is that visible signs of disorder and neglect, such as broken windows, can lead to an increase in crime and antisocial behaviour in a community. If small crimes are not addressed and corrected, it can lead to an increase in more serious crimes. Maintaining a well-ordered environment can prevent criminal activity and promote community safety. And if we can address minor crimes, then that signals to potential offenders that criminal behaviour will not be tolerated and that the community really cares about its environment. So when I was reading about these broken windows, I was thinking about this growing tech business that I was running, and I could see broken windows everywhere. So our employees could see even more. So what I thought was, well, broken windows, visible signs of problems can lead to an increase in wider issues and frustration within the workplace. And if these issues aren't addressed, it can lead to increase in more serious problems. People get frustrated and staff become burnt out. But if we can focus on continually improving, then people are going to feel more proud and have a sense of belonging. And if we can address these issues in a kind of real time and an emergent sense, then the organisation is going to see that we really care and employee experience should improve as a whole. So what I decided to do was try this as a metaphor to address the various issues that we were experiencing in our team week by week, and to make sure that we were listening and engaging on what mattered most to our people. So what we did is we set up a monthly team meeting and we invited everyone along. And my role as the CEO was to set an open and inclusive tone, and really important was a message that speaking up about what was on your mind and the problems you're experiencing would be applauded. So I would chair the meeting and we'd have everybody in a big massive room and a whiteboard, and people would shout out what was bugging them, right? What's the thing that's on your mind right now that's causing you frustration? And we'd start putting them up on a whiteboard. And what we would do is once we'd had 20 or 30 minutes of that, we'd start going around people and would say, right, does this resonate with you? You know, what is the impact on you individually? So we would start to flag them, mark them based on people's votes. And you can see these little counts up at the top. And then what we would do is we would circle and agree a top 5, okay? And you can see that these issues were things like environmental issues, like the bins not being emptied, quiet spaces needed for phone calls. But it was also things about the service we were delivering to our customers, right? Effort estimates being off and lack of awareness of customer projects. So it covered lots of different things. And the key for identifying this top 5 was that we would then look for volunteers who would champion each of those issues. They would go away and would make some progress on them, and we'd come back in a month later and we would see what progress we'd made. And what happened was that as a result of this, our business started to improve dramatically. But what was really interesting was that our employee experience also started to increase significantly. So we used to measure what we called employee net promoter score. And before we started this, we were around about 6. And as we started the broken windows process, where we met every month and we shouted out our issues and we went away to work on them, we started to hover out and up at 9 out of 10. So it was really, really very significant in improving our business, but also in improving employee engagement and employee morale. So how did we start making this business as usual within the organisation? There's 3 important steps. The first is that leaders must set the intent for continuous improvement and create a framework where we can have really inclusive and transparent conversations. We talked earlier in the session before, which I really loved, which was stop emailing, let's start having conversations. So it's about having really open conversations. The second is that you need champions who are going to volunteer to review these priorities and then connect with the people in the business who are the experts or the actors, and then update everyone on that progress, which really helps deliver greater agility as we reach these outcomes. And then the third stage is that employees see that they're being listened to, and as a result of that, trust increases, and therefore they feel, well, okay, it's worthwhile speaking up about the things that matter most to me, and therefore things will improve across the organisation. Now, what was really interesting was that our business was very successful and we ended up being acquired, and we became part of an organisation of 70,000 employees. And we found at that point that we weren't able to run the broken windows process in the same way. And as a result, employee experience fell on its backside, as did the performance of the organisation. And what we learned was that if you do broken windows, then things improve. If you don't do it, then things will decline very, very quickly. And there was 3 things that we learned it was really important to do. One was broken windows helped us keep employees happy and motivated. The second is it kept the business performing well. And the third, it meant that we were ensuring that we were continually innovating and staying ahead of our competition, which was really, really important to us. So what we did is we said, okay, let's turn this into a digital platform, right? We were doing this manually on whiteboards and monthly meetings. So what we wanted to do was do this in a way where we could scale it up. We were now in an organisation of 70,000 people. So we went away, we created a separate company, and we started to build the product which reflected this manual process. And it's got 4 key components, and it's all about delivering employee-led workplace improvement. So the first is sense and understand in real time what's important to your people. The second is automatically prioritise things based on the impact that it has on the crowd as a whole. The third is that you then need people who are going to engage and act and update people on the little steps that are being taken day by day to move these prioritised items forward. And the fourth is that we're going to use data to report on the impact on what's happening. So if we just look at that very quickly, what we start with is a series of tools that allow us to do either a top-down, the traditional top-down, a bit like a survey, but a one-shot question to avoid survey fatigue. And it uses that traditional happy, unhappy face that you see in the airports or in Tesco self-serve, and it's always anonymous. So this is a nice way to get real-time information within minutes and hours on how people feel about a particular hot topic that you as a leader know that is being debated in the corridors or the canteens or in the private team sessions. The second way you do it is that you have a tool that's always on so that people can contribute their suggestions and their concerns at any time, and in a way that allows other people to comment. And what was really important about this is that you can be optionally anonymous, okay? So there's no barrier to entry, and it helps you bypass levels of psychological safety, which can be different all across big organizations. And the other thing is that the transparency of this, where everyone gets the results at the same time, is really, really important to instill a culture of belonging so that everyone can see that they're in this together. So what happens is, as a result of this data coming in every minute and every hour, the system can then automatically prioritize a top 5, okay? And it can do it for the entire organization, a specific department, or a specific location within your organization. And the idea is that this top 5 is very, very easy to embed within the meetings that most organizations have across the business. It might be an executive meeting, it might be a team meeting. And what you do is you filter that view and you look at the top 5 for your particular setting and you start to work through them. Okay, number 1, what can we do about this? Who's going to volunteer? Great, let's move on. Number 2. Now, the important thing is not to try and fix everything, but to engage on what people think are the most important things, because bear in mind, these are sorted based on the number of people that are interested and the impact, which we measure based on a flame system. Okay, so you're always engaging on the things that matter most. And as this gets guided through the workflow towards completion, your number 1 will disappear and a new entry will come into the top 5. So you start becoming very agile as a result of that, but in a way that is very, very engaging, because this is all happening in real time and people are being kept up to date on the things that they care about the most. And then what's also important is having a workflow that guides champions from actions that are required, which are automatically highlighted through to outcomes. So let's take some actions and let's deliver some outcomes and look at the approval rating that we get when we inform people that we've made this change or we've had this engagement. And then the final stage is to use data to provide automated executive summaries, which show you this is what was important this month. This is what we've done about what was important this month. Here's the results of our mood senses, showing you how people feel. And here's the morale in the team and the top 5 positive and negative things that contribute to the good and the bad days. And what that allows us to do is to say, okay, here is the impact that these changes, these broken windows that we're identifying, here's the impact that turning those into outcomes is having across the organization. And we also have real-time dashboards so that you can see how things are right now, so that leaders can make timely interventions to keep things from deviating too far off track. So as I said, this is used across various boards in NHS Scotland and recently in England. So we're just a young startup business. And what we've done is we've identified a very simple recipe that allows us to embed this and for organizations to try it out. And it takes between 4 and 6 weeks to do this. So we look for 3 teams, we look for a volunteer team of champions, and then we put the system in on a go live date and people start talking about what's important. And then at the end of 1 month, there's usually been 2 full cycles of continuous improvement. So you start to see things changing and you start to see people becoming more involved in a way that's very transparent and very inclusive. And at the end of that trial, you either finish that or you start embedding more teams into that. So what does this actually look like in real life? So I'm going to take you through a couple of examples from NHS Scotland. This one's probably my favourite from the last few months. Some junior doctors in one of the hospitals that uses Trickle were getting frustrated with the amount of time it takes to get the results from a echocardiogram. And it was taking up to 30 minutes in some cases, where they were having to go down into a basement, queue for results, get a printout and go back to the patient. So what they did is they raised this as a broken window within our system, within Trickle, and it reached the top 5 because of the number of people that were impacted by it. And they had some engagement, digital conversation within the platform to understand the workarounds. And then the outcome was, after 7 weeks, they managed to get that 30-minute wait down to 0 minutes, which saved them, we reckon, about £28,000 per year in that one hospital alone. That's one example. This next one is a Trickle that was raised about safety concerns from junior doctors at night, where they couldn't get a place in the car park and they were having to walk sometimes over a mile to the nearest street where they were allowed to park. What they did is, again, that rose into the top 5, and they started having discussion about what they could do across the various different parties across the organisation who could impact this. And the outcome was that they had allocated parking spaces, which they prioritised for female staff that were on night shift. So there's lots and lots of different types of conversations that are happening within the platform, but the important thing is that they're driving outcomes and they're done in a way that is very inclusive and very transparent. So that's what I wanted to cover today, folks. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll leave it for any quick questions.